Hey students, today we're going to be talking about the abolitionist movement and those that played a major role in the movement. In the 1800s, an abolitionist was a person that sought to end slavery. Abolitionism had been part of the United States history since its colonial days with the Quakers and other religious groups. During the Constitutional Convention in 1787, it was thought that slavery would gradually phase out of the United States, but southern states were resistant from the start. The compromise that was reached was that by 1808, the importation of slavery would be outlawed, but not the practice itself. It was thought that this would give time for southern states to phase out slavery, but this did not happen. Slavery was on the decline in the South, but with the invention of the cotton gin and other technological advancements, slavery was revived. The Second Great Awakening would start to move people primarily in the North, where slavery was largely gone, to campaign against the institution. One solution that was proposed by the American Colonization Society was to send free slaves to Africa, to Liberia. The goal was to resettle free slaves in Liberia. By the mid 1860s, the society would help relocate about 10,000 freed slaves to Liberia. Now, this was not done out of altruism, doing good for the sake of good. It was done out of racist fears of what freed slaves would influence onto society. Some members were not abolitionists, but just wanted to not have African Americans in free society. Slavery was the issue on everybody's mind in the United States in the 1800s. In 1831, William Lloyd Garrison started his abolitionist paper, The Liberator. Garrison sought for the immediate end of slavery and would write, "I will be harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice. I will not retreat a single inch, and I will be heard." Through the publication of The Liberator, many people would come together against slavery to form anti-slavery societies, and by 1838, there were over 1,000 clubs throughout the nation. The spread of the abolitionist movement would lead to the freedom of many African slaves and give society some of the great voices against slavery, those who were once in chains. One of the greatest, if not the greatest of these voices was Frederick Douglass. Douglass has one of the most exciting stories of escaping slavery. He grew up enslaved but had a fighting spirit since his youth. He would find his way north with deception and acting his way around slave catchers. He would join the Anti-Slave Society in Massachusetts, and he would become the editor of the anti-slavery newspaper, the North Star. Douglass would call for an end of slavery and full legal and social freedom for African Americans. Another powerful voice in the abolitionist movement would be Sojourner Truth. Truth was born a slave in New York, but gained her freedom in 1827 when New York banned slavery. Truth changed her name from Isabella Baumfree because she would, quote, travel up and down the land showing people their sins, and would take truth to be her goal for the people. The movement would be more than just words on a page. Action was taking place through a network of people to get African Americans their freedom. The network was the Underground Railroad, and its greatest conductor was Harriet Tubman. Tubman would guide free slaves from bondage through miles of hostile wilderness, the dogs of slave catchers, and with the help of white abolitionists along the way to get slaves to the North or to Canada. Tubman and others like her would lead as many as 100,000 people to freedom, but Southerners did not ignore this loss of what they thought was their property. Angry white Southerners would attempt to get their slaves back from Northerners to the point of becoming violent. In Philadelphia, a mob would start a violent race riot and burn down the headquarters of the local anti-slavery society. The police would have to take William Lloyd Garrison to jail to protect him from harm. In Illinois, Elijah Lovegood, a printer of abolitionist papers, had his office destroyed 3 times, but continued to purchase new printers. On the 4th destruction, the mob would burn down the office. Lovejoy would walk out of the burning building to be shot by an angry slave supporter. Angry Southerners and slave supporters would attempt to appeal to some form of logic that slavery was good for the slaves and Americans alike, In Congress, the argument would be made that slaves were treated well because the masters would provide food, shelter, and clothing. They would even invoke the Bible, stating that they were also saving the slaves' souls by converting them to Christianity. They would call Northerners hypocrites because most textile goods were made from Southern cotton, and would state that the South gave the North the shirt that they were wearing. Slavery would remain to be the thorn in the side of the United States, but this was soon coming to a bloody end. Alright, students, that is lesson 2. Please make sure that you are reading your books, make sure that you're washing your hands, do not touch your face, and stay inside.